Good morning.
Good morning. It's the first day of August,
Yes,
2021.
we opened the door, we went outside, and we didn't stay. We came
Not
back
in
in.
South
That's
Florida,
right.
not in August.
In South Florida, there is more humidity than there is air.
Yeah, and it seems that the earlier it is, the more humid it is, and the sun seems to burn some of it off as it keeps rising.
And we're not saying don't come to Florida or don't move here. We have lots of humidity.
It's summertime.
Yeah.
So our talk today is about tuning into guidance. And I loved it because the reading for today from Ernest Holmes in 365, in my opinion, speaks to that topic. So, and it is called um, I Am Vitalized by the Fullness of Life. And first, I have to see what you're doing, Bob. What are you doing?
I was turning the volume down.
Okay. All right.
That's one of my jobs.
So, Ernest Holmes says, you know that life cannot withhold itself from you. All that life is and has is fully given to you to enjoy. The life of God is perfect and
And
eternal. It is the essence of everything that is. Life is God's gift to you. It is always ready to manifest itself through you in its entire fullness. You are a self-choosing mind in a divinity that permeates everything. You are always in the midst of life, a life that lives eternally and lives through you now. Therefore, you need not be disturbed by the passage of time, the movement around you, nor the variations of your experience. There is something within you that remains unmovable, that always speaks directly to you, saying, "Be still and know that I am God." So say consciously with me now, I draw upon the life that is mine. I know that the fullness of life, which is divine in its origin, eternal in its presence, and forever available, is mine. The life of the eternal spirit is my life. The infinite riches of its being are mine to enjoy. The vitality, the wisdom, and the peace of God are mine. I accept them in fullness, in joy, and in peace. My thought is a gateway to illumination. It is the secret place of the Most High within me. Therefore, I revel in the fullness of life this moment. I accept life as a glorious experience and a spiritual adventure. And so it
That's
is.
really good. Judith usually has most of the quotes, and I decided I didn't want to be quoteless. So today I have a quote. I'm going to read it.
All right.
I do not think of God theistically, that is, as a being supernatural in power who dwells beyond the limits of the world. I rather experience God as the source of life willing me to live fully, the source of love calling me to love wastefully, and to borrow a phrase from the theologian Paul Tillich, as the ground of being calling me to be all that I can be. I
And
love,
that quote is by
Spong, John
Shell.
Shelby Spong. Thank
Right.
you. See, I don't do quotes very often, so I need a little help with my quotes.
And John Shelby Spong was Bishop Spong.
Yeah,
Um,
until he was debishoped.
yes, I think with the Methodists. Um, he's also the author of a book of a class that we're going to be teaching soon. The name of that book is Rescuing the Bible from Fundamental. Whoops, it disappeared me. Rescuing the Bible from Fundamentalism. So information about that class is on our website. But I just wanted to tell you who John Spong is.
That was a
He was
beautiful
also
reading.
a Harvard
That was a
professor.
beautiful transition right to the
Yeah,
ad. Yeah.
he's a Harvard professor.
Smart man.
So we're talking about guidance today, and guidance is something I've got to tell you on my spiritual journey of awakening to my spiritual life and my spiritual magnificence. Guidance is what I wanted most of all. I wanted to be able to hear guidance. I would read about it in the spiritual books and people's experience and how they started receiving spiritual guidance. And oh, I wanted that so badly. And
She got it.
I wanted someone, someone up there to tell me what to do. I wanted to make infallible choices and decisions. And I found that that's not what guidance is. There's nobody who's going to tell you what to do.
And
As a matter of fact, that seems to be a major law of the universe from spirit, is you don't tell anybody what to do.
in fact, I think what Spirit wants us to do is to grow and learn through our experience, not be told what to do. We're not supposed to be here to be told what to do to get it right. We're supposed to be here to learn what we can learn and to be supported. I had a mentor early on in my...
And to learn from mistakes.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. Yeah. I had an early mentor in my mental health training. His name was Joseph Maxey. He was a social worker, LCSW, one of my favorite people. And I would do group therapy because that's what I was being trained to do. And I had a couple of different mentors. One of the mentors would say, you need to do this. You do it this way instead of that way. And I always found myself, after his mentoring, resentful and angry and frustrated. And Joe had a different style of mentoring, which I think to me is like the kind of guidance that we get from Spirit. Joe would watch me do something in group. And then after we were all done, he would say, Bob, what do you think would happen if you did this instead of that? And I said, I don't know. I don't know if it would work. He said, what do you think? Do you think it's worth trying? Well, like, we'll try it, but I mean, I don't know if it would work or not. And I learned more from him by his invitation to consider, but not to be told what to do. And what I also got was the power of experimenting on my own rather than following orders. And so when Spirit speaks to us, it's not attempting to tell us what to do, but to head us in the direction of inquiry, a deeper look, a deeper understanding of what is possible. And I think that's contrary to what we want. And what we want most of the time, just tell me what to do so I can get it right. I don't want to make any mistakes.
Right. And I don't want to cause pain to myself.
Yeah.
But, we learn from making our decisions. What I have experienced with guidance is I often get guidance on a different way to think about the situation. And so it's not so much do this or don't do that, but know that, for example, you won't harm anyone if you do that. And so that was a huge shift for me to get things like that. Just it's more just remember this, just remember that. And then you still make your own decisions, but you feel calmer about it and better about it. And the most important thing I can tell you about getting guidance is we have to learn to shut up and listen. We're so busy running our own thoughts and going, I wonder which way I should do this or which way to go, how I should. We just have to be still, as the Bible quote says, be still and know that I am. And the God within speaks to you. But you do have to go into silence and still that jabbery voice of your own.
I spent some time reviewing a lot of Raymond Moody interviews. Raymond Moody interviewed hundreds of people that had had a near-death experience. And all of them, to a person, experienced going into a room of what seemed like light, and where there was a panorama of their life. And they got to see their entire life, the way they'd lived it, the impact that it had on other people. But one of the things that never showed up in any of the interviews that I listened to or read was the voice that gave them encouragement and support never said, oh, nothing to do here, you got it right. They never said you got it, and none of them ever
But they
said,
also didn't say you got it wrong.
no, they never said you got it right, and they never said you got it wrong. They simply said, look at it and learn from the experience. What is it that this all meant? What does it mean to you now? What kind of help is it going to be for you when you go back, if you go back and you have a choice? So what you see is somebody reviewing everything that they've done without judgment, and that is the place we can do our learning.
And that someone is probably your own higher self.
Yeah, so if you could look at everything you've done without judgment, could you then pull from that the lessons you've learned and apply them? Or do you do what I like to do at 3 o'clock in the morning when I'm really tired and hungry and can't sleep, review everything I've ever done wrong and make a judgment about it? I don't do it as much as I used to, but it does happen on occasion, particularly if I eat spicy foods. But you wake up in the middle of the night like, this would be a good time to review the crap in your life that you did. Remember the mistakes you made? Let's turn the volume up on those.
Way up.
But what about the things you did good? They weren't that good. Yeah. So, I mean, this judgment piece of us can just take over and it runs things. And so if we could simply say, it was what Albert Ellis just said, which I always go back to and I love, we always did the best we could. We always do the best we can, given what we know and believe. The invitation from Spirit is to change what you know, to change what you believe, to update it, to grow it, to experience it, not to get it right.
Exactly. And I often wonder because I, like many of you, did start receiving guidance. So I think when you really want something and you practice meditation and being in silence, you will receive it. And I often wonder, where exactly is this coming from? And I think there's really no way we can know that. I do believe that we have spiritual guides. I do believe that some of them could talk to us in spirit. I do believe there are angels. I do believe, there's lots of things, and I do believe it really doesn't matter, and that's why we call it spirit. Spirit spoke with me, because it doesn't really matter. We just know it wasn't from our own thinking; it was from listening.
When you listen to, we were talking before that we got started, and for some reason we're not muted. Other people are not muted. I'm hearing background. If we can mute them or not.
Okay, let me do that.
We were, okay, thank you. There we go.
I think maybe.
So we were talking earlier about radio programs. Don't wait, don't tell me. And
wait, don't tell me.
Yeah, wait, don't tell me. And the power and the joy of that. But the interesting thing is that program that you're listening to does not come from your radio. It doesn't come from the transmitter. It doesn't come from the recording. It comes from consciousness. And it comes from consciousness through you, however you're able to listen. And what's important is that we don't identify that inner voice as, well, is it this or is it that? Is it worth listening to? Is it supportive? Is it helpful? Can you question it? Can you learn from it? And if it's an inner voice that knows more than you do, why not listen to it? If it's an outer voice that knows more than you do, why not listen to it? And I know early on in the 70s, when I discovered the Seth material, Seth Speaks was a book written by a woman who's an author who channeled this book. And this was the first book that was channeled, meaning it was an entity outside of herself that came through her.
It's the first popular one, Jane Roberts.
Yeah, Jane Roberts, yeah. And but what the question wasn't, is it good information? Is it true? The question, I don't know what the source of this is. I don't have to ask what the source of good is if it's good. And I'm not as concerned about breaking down whether it came from ABC, NBC, or CBS if it's news worth listening to.
Right.
And so I think what we need to do is to stop with the judgment and open ourselves to the investigation, to the inquiry into, how do I find out more? How do I learn more? And the deeper you go, the greater the truth, or the more easily you find out there's no truth at all.
Right. Or if it resonates with you.
Yeah.
For example, there were some earlier channel books that I just don't relate to, the Urantia book, and you read that.
Yeah.
But I just got lost in it. It's too much. And Emanuel Swedenborg, who started the Swedenborg religion, was all channeled material. Very, very Christian Orthodox, probably appropriate for his era, which was in the 1800s, I believe. But doesn't speak to me today. So there were lots of previous written materials.
Spoken in the language of the people of the time. And we need, I think what I'm just suggesting is that we listen without judgment, and we listen with an openness to inquire and not to worry about getting it wrong. And we're not going to get it wrong. We're not going to get it right. We're going to get what we need to do what we need to do, and we're going to learn from that experience.
Exactly.
And when we do that, we're much freer to expand. Recently, I sent some of my artwork to CBS Sunday morning. It's a great program, and they use mandalas like the one that's behind us, often between the different stories that they tell. And I thought, well, mine are as good as any of theirs. I'll send.
And the one behind us is one of yours. So.
Yeah, and I'll send them several of mine. What's interesting is I had the address that I could use to send it to them for about a month before I sent them. Why didn't I send them immediately? Well, you see, I would rather be hopeful that they would say yes than I would have them say no. How often do we not do something because we would rather fail or not succeed than to have our belief or our hope dashed? And I think this is an important piece. So it took me a month to send them my artwork so that they could, quote, accept or reject. And they said, well, we're going to use one of the pieces. We don't know which one, but we'll talk with you more about it. We love the artwork. It's really, really good. And it was a very nice letter from them. And I thought it took me a month to get up the courage to send them what is good. How often is it difficult for you to get up the courage to deliver what is good from you? Not because it's not good, but because you're afraid that if it doesn't go well, you'll never have hope again. You'll never have a dream again like that. It'll never manifest for you. And so the first thing I wanted to say about this business of believing in yourself is that you need to move in the direction of it, even when it doesn't feel right.
Yes, and I've seen that happen with your. I've always, from the first time I saw Bob's mandalas, which was now over 35 years ago, I think 34 years ago. I just think it's beautiful and it's detailed and it's gorgeous, and I know how long he takes to make them, and it's an incredible talent. And to me, they just are like looking at the beauty of the universe, and yet I've been with him in the presence of others who dismiss it just out of hand as, "Oh,
Is
that's computerized
is
art,"
that is
or
that a doily?
yeah,
No, it's
or
not a
yeah,
doily.
one
No.
of our a very spiritual musical person who called them doilies. And so when
She's not with us anymore.
when you're when you're giving of yourself and creating something like that, to have it so dismissed is really hurtful, and you're afraid to put it out there, again,
But I think this is the dilemma we all face, where we all, whether we know it consciously or unconsciously, we all struggle with delivering more of ourselves to a world that may not receive it.
Mhm.
And our fear is not that it won't receive it, but that in not receiving it, somehow we're not worth it. We will never be able to have the next thing or the greater thing that was within us be expressed. And so I think we have to step out. I had to step out and send the artwork. And it took a month before I got a response. So I went back and forth with, I guess they don't like it. I guess they're not going to accept it. I don't know. I wonder what happened. It probably just filed it away. I found out that the studio is closed and it goes from the studio to the home of the person who's responsible for it in the UPS. And it took several weeks before she got it. And it was interesting. She
Oh, that's right, you
apologized.
sent physical
Yeah,
art,
yeah,
didn't you?
yeah.
Yes.
She apologized for how long it took to respond. I, on the other hand, had already dismissed it as probably not going to happen. The universe doesn't work for me. Works for other people, but not for me. And I mean, I don't always have that conversation, but it doesn't take us long to get to that.
No. So this CBS Sunday Morning is a 2-hour show on Sunday mornings that we record so we can watch it later, because it's always a positive
Mhm.
show. We really, really enjoy it. And they show various forms of artistic mandalas of the sun, basically.
Yeah.
And so we thought it would be appropriate. And I'm so excited that we got a
And they
response.
have my book and they commented about they liking the book. And so,
The Diary of a Mindful Dog.
right, we'll see where that goes because that could be. So what I'm rooting for is that my little book becomes a bestseller, and why not?
So tuning into guidance, again, this is something that everybody can do. It does take going into the silence and quieting your own voice. And I want to read a quote by Ernest Holmes about this. He says, "As you learn to release all your burdens to the right action of God, you'll find that everything falls into its proper place. You let your problems slip away from you, realizing that a power greater than you are and a presence that is within you is ready, willing, and able to guide you in all ways. Then peace, security, and fulfillment come with ease, and there's a sense of joy and accomplishment." So I just think that's so comforting to know that there is a presence within you that is ready, willing, and able to guide you. As I say, it won't tell you what to do, but it will sure help in how you feel about what you're going to do. And
Imagine,
that is the biggest impediment often is.
imagine that you have a consciousness bank account and that you have a huge number of bills coming in. And up until recently, you have wondered how you were going to pay them. And now you've just been notified that you have a huge amount of money in the bank to pay all those bills. Imagine the same thing is true in consciousness, that you have a huge amount of consciousness available to cover all of what you might call
Mm,
debt or difficulty. And when you pursue it, when, somehow when you look at all the bills coming in and the only question is, how am I going to manage this? There is a fearfulness and an anxiety that for me feels very much like, am I up to this? Am I good enough? Can I manage this? As opposed to, oh yeah, we have that in the bank. We have that. That's an automatic withdrawal. And so what I'd like you to think is there's an automatic withdrawal system in consciousness. You
mhm.
have a bank account that's large enough to handle all of the debt. And you actually, if you want to, and you're willing to, you can spend more. And the funny thing about consciousness is the more you spend, the more you get, the more it feeds you. The bigger the question, the greater the answer. The larger the step, the more wonderful the journey. It doesn't feel that way in all cases, but it is that way in consciousness, that you, as you do more, you get more because you learn more.
I'm going to end with another quote from a theoretical physicist, Max Max Planck, Max Planck, we call him. But so from a physicist's point of view, he says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Now, he didn't mean that symbolically. He meant physically, looking at atoms and electrons and all the subatomic particles that when you change the way you look at them, the things actually change. So, and they found that it largely is what you expect. You see what you expect to see. So that is just so meaningful in our teaching, that we see what we expect to see. And when we change the way we look at things, they change.
Imagine that you are the embodiment of an extraordinary amount of energy. And imagine that that energy can be directed in thousands and thousands of different ways. And imagine now that you're with somebody who's sick. And imagine that you know that the energy that you are is a healing energy that can contribute to their wholeness and wellness. And imagine then in mind being in their presence and allowing that to occur spontaneously because it can, and knowing that that person will receive the energy that they need for the healing that will be best for them. We often don't do any of that. What we do is we imagine that person being sick. We're thankful we're not sick, and we hope that they don't die, and we hope that we don't. And there's no energy there. In fact, there's fear. So when we recognize that we are a source of energy, we are an expression of energy, and we can mold and shape that energy. We were watching recently on Nova, it was a wonderful program on luminescent creatures.
In
Uh,
the
uh,
deep ocean.
oh, beautiful. But what they did was the colors changed according to how they were experiencing their world, whether they were wanting to frighten an animal away, whether they were frightened of an animal.
Whether they were attracting animals to.
So you see this wonderful light display. The light display on the surface of their body was a reflection of the internal workings. And I thought, we may not be able to see the light display, but we all have one.
Mhm.
And you've met people when you say, I can't see the light with my eyes open, but I can sure see it with my eyes closed. And the closer I get to you, the more light I see. And boy, do I want to be near that. And because we are an expression of that, but when we know that and we allow that to be in our conscious mind, it's another way of saying, I took a look at my checking account and it's full. I
Mhm.
have enough. I'm an abundant person.
How do you feel? How do you get a checking account totally full? Should it have a maximum?
It would have been okay had you not said that. Because when I finished, I thought, oh, no, that's not, yeah. Okay. And when
So,
I diagnosed, I said, you were right up until that point, and then you got it wrong.
so
Yeah.
let's close. Let's close with this Bible quote that Ernest Holmes gave us initially, which is the "Be still and know that I am God." And I'd like to share with you something that you can do on your own that helps you still that voice. Is eliminate one word at a time from the end. So, for example, the next thing would be still and know that I am. And then just be still and know that I. Be still and know. Be still and. Be still. Be. So that can be a wonderful lead in to just being and being in the silence to tune into your guidance that's always there for you. And so it is.
So we're going to go to off camera and play our music and have our offering. For those of you that would like to support us, feel free to go to our website, and you can certainly do that by clicking on donate.
Yes, and our website is cslpalmbeaches.org.